Hi, I'm Mike Ralston, the CEO of Blencowe Resources, and we're going to be running a series where we discuss graphite and graphite markets, and in particular our Orem Cross graphite project in Uganda. I think it's very important to note that unless a project has these necessities, which are low operating cost, low capital cost for startup, and a high purity of the end product for sale into the off-takers, the project is going to struggle. It's going to struggle for many different reasons. It won't make enough commercial return, it will not get funded, or it won't have any off-takers in order to buy the product. So they're all very, very important. And at the end of the day, without any of these, or with any of these missing, one or more of these missing, the project itself is going to struggle to get up, which is why we're seeing many projects going round and round and not getting up at the moment, and is likely to continue that way going forward. For small flake graphite that's being sold into the anode market to ultimately be part of the electric vehicle battery, it's very, very important that the mine goes through a pre-qualification process whereby the end user can understand what the graphite translates to as it gets processed into a concentrate and then into a spheronized purified graphite, which is what goes into the anode. And that process, that pre-qualification, does not only just occur through metallurgical testing in laboratories, it needs to occur on a commercial scale. That is either through a pilot plant at site or through some pilot facilities, typically in China. So that process of pre-qualification, if it's not done, if it's not conducted successfully by mines, means that they will struggle to get any offtake contracts, which obviously is a critical part of completing the DFS and going through into production. That lack of understanding has caused many graphite companies to not be able to progress further towards mining. The price of small flake graphite concentrate is a lot lower than the large flake. This is the product that's going into the batteries. Typically, most mines will have about 50% of their concentrate as small flake, and the prices are low. Therefore, the margins are low, and therefore, if half of their product is being sold at a margin that's barely above water, it makes it very difficult for a mine to be able to go forward into production on making commercial sense. So the issue really is, whilst small flake concentrate makes up a significant percentage of the end product, how does a mining project make any profit, and how does it justify production? If a mine is selling half of its product at unprofitable prices, even if it's making a small margin, it needs to ultimately sell an awful lot of product in order to make its returns on volume rather than on margin. And that creates its own problem because the graphite market is not huge. And if any one player, such as Blencowe Resources did in the past, comes in and overfloods the market in terms of small flake, and ultimately trying to make their own returns on bulk and on volume, that creates the downward pressure which renders it even more unprofitable, and so it's a downward spiral and creates a big problem for the entire market. Funding projects is challenging, but with the right absolute necessities, as we've talked about before, the low operating costs, low capital costs, and high purity of end product, it's very possible to find interested parties, particularly because the banks and other key parties, including governments, are very, very interested and wanting to see the transition, the green energy transition happen. And so there is ulterior objectives coming into play here as well, which overlay on top of the commercial objectives and the commercial outcomes. So it does require finesse, but it is possible. It's going to be very interesting because there are all these issues that are at play. There is a strong possibility that there won't be enough new graphite mines starting. So that means that the ones that do will have a lot of power and will have a lot of success going forward. But there's certainly going to be a demand And for that reason, we do need new graphite mines starting. And it's just a question of how many can overcome the issues and be able to get into production going forward.